In this lesson, we look more closely at stopping at the tapas point. So the tapas point is the point at which limitations are addressed, whether the limitation is about openness, strength, or knowledge. If a student's range of motion is limited by muscle elasticity, in this example, they'll stop folding when the length of the hip extensors makes folding further with straight legs painful, harmful, or impossible. The hip extensors, which attach at the back of the femur or tibia and the back of the pelvis in this case, are limiting the amount of fold available in the hip. When the student stops at that end point, they can work precisely at that place to further open the hip extensors if, when that point of limitation is reached, the fold moves into the knees by bending them or the spine by rounding the upper back, the potential transformation in the hip is reduced or eliminated. We also pre-aligned by establishing the strong effort of thoracic extension. That's the upper back. If the student has a weak upper back and they know to only fold as far as the knees stay straight and the thoracic spine stays in the effort of extension, they'll likely be limited in folding from the hips by the strength of the upper back, which is where the extensors of the thoracic are. As they fold more deeply from the hips, resistance from the hip extensors increases, just like in the example above. But if the student has a weaker upper back, they will work to stay calm and focused as the muscles of the upper back work to stabilize the upper spine in the pre-alignment that was taught in the pre-pose. If this same student kept moving even after the thoracic started to go into flexion or a rounded shape, they'd lose the opportunity to develop important strength there. So in that case, it's not tightness in the hip flexors or hip extensors, it is weakness in the upper back. So this process of pre-aligning, prioritizing stability, moving with alignment, and then stopping at the tapas point is very different in different student bodies, and it has helped each of them know how far to go, and they've gone to a place where they will do some very good work for each of them, even if that work is different, and even if they don't know what the limiting factor is. With the same set of instructions, you've taught each person in the class how to customize their physical practice in the same pose so that the work is the work that best suits them, that works best for them. This process helps make instructions universal. It takes the modern practice of group asana classes and infuses them with tools that allow each individual to have insight into their own body in the present moment. Back to this example, in the first movement of a common form of sun salute, the arms reach out to the sides and up to touch above the head. Optimal alignment for the final pose would be straight arms and no lower back bend, and since most people can't do this, they go only as far as they can with straight elbows and a neutral spine. This brings up an important thing to understand in this methodology. The two main kinds of physical limitation that prevent an injury-free joint from moving to its full range of motion are weakness and inflexibility. A third type of limitation is about knowledge or skill. In the case of the person who can't bring their hands together overhead with straight elbows and a neutral low back, it could be strength in certain muscles or inflexibility in some muscles, or they might not know or be able to feel if their low back or elbows are bending. Or it may be a combination of 2 or 3 of those limiting factors. One wonderful thing about knowing how to work with this process is that whether the limitation is flexibility, strength, or knowledge and skill, or a combination, it is addressed because you are working at the current end range of functionality, no matter why that end range is where it is. Fixing whatever the limitation is here at the beginning is how we teach more challenging things like backbends and inversions, where the same range of motion, openness, and understanding is needed, as in this example of circling the arms up and overhead. When working with the tapas point, when working with this process of finding the tapas point, you are often doing the same kind of work in very easy and basic poses that you then do more skillfully in harder and more complex ones because they've been addressed in these simple ones. So, done skillfully, stopping where one should stop means that each student stops moving into a shape when the stable parts that were pre-aligned would have to become unstable or move to go further, or when they have reached the maximum depth available in that asana, which is quite rare. It needs improvement when there is some instruction about where to stop, but it is not delivered in a way that is individualized, or it is not clear, or it is delivered too late. If the student is not going to their tapas point cognizant of what that means and where it is, this needs improvement. And it's absent when needed if students are either not told how to know where to stop at all, or they are given instructions that are not individualized. For example, coming into Uttanasana, the standing forward bend, if the students are told to fold and press their head as close to the legs as possible, or if they are simply told to fold, the tapas point is not being taught.